All right. I think we are officially live. Just making sure here. Uh, can you guys hear me? How's it going, everyone? We got Chris here. Let's go for opening day. Landon, love that we got some of our NBA guys in here. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it, man. Middle of the day. I know we got a little bit of a different group, but yeah, would it be a new season without a few technical difficulties? But we are here. We are back. And so is the MLB season. I usually say, as always, I'm here to help you break down the NBA slate. But today, a little bit different. We're here for MLB. We don't know yet if we're going to be doing constant videos for MLB because we do have the daily plug on the site. I will talk you guys through that. I'll talk through the slate. We're going to talk about the best plays. Any questions you have, whether they be about specific players, plays on today's slate, or just DFS in general and how to handle MLB. It's definitely a different game than NBA is. Plenty more reasons to like it. Some stuff does get a little bit frustrating though. So let's see here. I'm just trying to think of the best way to go about this. So the DK slate doesn't lock until 4 p.m. The FanDuel slate has two games at 3 p.m. So if you are building for FanDuel, keep that in mind. I'm probably going to go most of the next hour or so, depending on how many questions and things we get in here. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Obviously, if we're talking about these first two games, Brewers, Yankees, Orioles, Blue Jays, that information is only going to be applicable to the FanDuel slate. So let's dig in here, though. First, I'm pulling up the model. So a little bit different than the NBA model. Those who are familiar with the Occupy Fantasy model and products, we got these tabs here. We got batters, pitchers, stacks. There's also single game for showdowns, tiers, weather. But today we're really going to focus on the batters, the pitchers, and the stacks. So the way I like to kind of describe MLB DFS, and I'm going to kind of keep my, I don't know, scope on things more tournament centric. We'll talk about cash games a little bit. Is there's a certain number of variables you're kind of taking into consideration when building lineups, and that depends on which site you're building on. For the most part, on DK, you have three variables. One is your first pitcher, two is your second pitcher, three is your main stack, your 5-man stack. Sometimes you will have two stacks, in which case you could say there's four, but most of the time, since we're going to be using 5-man stacks, I like to say there is three variables: your two pitchers and your one stack. I'll talk about how to fill in the rest of your lineup as we go through here and start building. On FanDuel, similar but different. Only one pitcher, so that's your one variable. But you can almost always get two stacks in, whether you're going 4-4-man or 4-3-man. I know we're going to get a lot of questions. What's the best way to go? On bigger slates like this, I almost always favor stacking as heavily as possible. Just think about it. Especially on a slate like today, where most of the arms are very good. If one guy struggles, you're going to want to cast a net over that entire lineup, maximize the upside there. There's also going to be correlation between players as they get on base, get driven in by their teammates, RBIs, runs, things stack up in a big way quickly if you're on one of these teams that does have a really good day. So stacking in MLB in tournaments continues to be the way to go, in my opinion. If you are playing smaller field stuff in cash games, you could really try to optimize value. But yeah, for the most part, again, I am almost always stacking in MLB regardless of contest. But we do have the strategy guys and stuff behind the scenes to kind of show you guys some of the percentages on that and why that's important. A little bit of housekeeping before I get too deep in here. I do just want to say, as the room starts to fill, we've been crushing MLB for years here. I've been part of the team now. I think this might be my third or fourth season. But yeah, last year we did have a 100K winner in Jalen Westman using the tools that you're going to see me showing here on the video. And they're very simple to use, and ownership, like any other DFS sport, is super important. But yeah, I think we do a great job kind of capturing those things in the model in one place where you can see them. And different than NBA, we also have the daily plug. So this is an article, Smitty, you NBA guys know Smitty well. And Chris and I are going to be behind the scenes doing this every single day for you. What this does is it's going to focus on what the model is putting out. So sometimes if we disagree with the model slightly, we'll let you know. But more often than not, what you see in the plug is really a summation of what you're going to see in the model. So the three top hitters, for example, on today's slate, and these are not a part of the top stacks, are Judge, Witt, and Trout. No surprise knowing those names, knowing the quality of bats that exist there. And value batters, these can be in the top stacks: Wallner, Jung, Berger, obviously guys with upside that are too cheap on both sites. But a lot of good info in here that's evergreen. So any day you go into the plug, you can kind of read through things. But for today, we're focusing on today's slate. We got the Rangers as one of the top stacks on the board, the Phillies, and the Red Sox. And I will say we didn't write them up, but since Tanner Bibby got scratched for the Guardians, the Royals are starting to look like one of the best stacks on the slate. We already had them and also consider, but Lively, definitely not a guy who should probably be pitching on opening day. And you can see that reflected in the model here. So the plug came out a few hours ago. Like I said, Texas, Boston, Philly were up there. We're sorting by OF index rating, which is really taking into account the upside for a team, the price, everything. And again, you don't want to double count. Like if you know a team's in cores, that's going to be reflected in the OF index rating. You're going to see the boost there. If they're against a terrible pitcher, that's reflected in the OF index rating. Bad bullpen, everything is reflected in the OF index rating. So if you want to just build, you don't have a ton of time, just use OF index rating to identify these stacks. It's the best way to go. And we do keep aggregate ownership over here on the far right, where you can see on DK, the Rangers not popular at all because they're taking on an arm in Garrett Crochet, who many think is going to win the AL Cy Young this year. So that's where we're finding leverage. You could sort by ownership and see what's popular. The Angels, very chalky today. Phillies, who we are listing, one of the chalkier stacks. So if you're getting different at pitcher, you want to play it a little safer at bats, maybe you go to Philly. And I am jumping around a little bit, guys, but I think this is just the best way to kind of get things off the ground. We'll dig into certain plays, certain arms, stats, and everything like that as we get going. But I really want to start here on the stacks page of the model and just show you how it correlates into the plug and then into building lineups. So again, OF index rating is really everything here in terms of rating stacks. And then once you choose the stack, you could go into the batters tab, which I have open in another window. Take a team, Texas, for example, and see which of those batters are profiling the best. And that's where you're going to that's where you're going to want to kind of prioritize filling in your lineup. So Wyatt Langford here, no surprise to me, batting third, shows an 8.0 OF index rating. He's the top bat on this team. But then we look and we got Kyle Higashioka. He's batting eighth. Nobody's playing him. He is very cheap. He's a good value piece. But yeah, if you're playing guys at the bottom of the order, that isn't always the best thing for correlation. So again, this team's already low owned, so we don't have to try to get different. But say we were using the Phillies and they had a really low owned catcher today, he was towards the top of the model. A good way to get different would maybe be to kind of create a wraparound stack like that, get him in there, given the high OF index rating, the low ownership. But yeah, for me, obviously against the lefty, I know Langford, Jung, Berger, mash left-handed pitching. Garcia is pretty much matchup proof. Pillar's in there. He is a pinch hit risk, but again, you're looking at a team that's already low owned. You could just take the best plays, or you could just take 1 through 5 in the batting order and feel pretty good about it. Again, because the ownership's so low on these guys, but the model absolutely loves them. Let me take a quick look at chat here. So much to cover, so I am going to jump around a bit. But yeah, we'll get a little bit more focused. I'll talk through game by game, things like that. But yeah, love all you guys being in here. Got Derek, ZA, appreciate you. Redfish, let's go indeed. Mike, go Giants. Yeah, I'm a Yankees fan. For those who don't know, you hear me suffer with my Nets on the NBA streams. Definitely a different mindset in my fandom here for baseball. Are we ready for the Angels to start the season strong until injuries ruin them once again? Yeah, that's always the case with the Angels. They're popular today. We'll talk through that game in a little bit. Kikuchi, new Angel here, actually one of the more popular plays on the slate in terms of pitching. Very cheap with a lot of upside against a terrible White Sox lineup. Yeah, Angels, Astros, Phillies, some of the higher implied run teams. But if you had to rank them by preference, where would you go between those three? Okay, so good question. So even if you're not going by OF index, a lot of the ownership is going to follow implied team totals. And the TT column here is what we're looking at. So that's the number of runs that these teams are projected to score in their game. So Chris here is asking about, we got the Astros, Phillies, and Angels, right? So they're all up there. But if we're looking at OF index, I mean, the Phillies are way up there. They're just super popular. Astros, though, really not getting a ton of love. I think because Clay Holmes is very much underrated. I think the model's doing a good job capturing his quality, but the fields and maybe Vegas maybe underrating him a little bit. So I would definitely rank Houston, I think, third in that group. Phillies first, probably Angels second. And that's kind of going in the same order as OF Index. But yeah, the issue with that ranking is that's pretty much the ownership ranking as well. So Houston does make you a little bit different, but I think you can get more different with a team like Texas, who the model loves. But yeah, we're going to see low totals today. Nothing over 5 runs. Again, this first day of the year, most teams have their aces on the hill, which is why with Bibby being scratched for KC, or for Cleveland, sorry, KC becomes so damn appealing. Really, really good spot here for a Royals lineup that's pretty underrated in my opinion. Obviously, they got Bobby Witt, a couple other studs at the top of that order, but even some of the cheap bats with speed, plenty of upside for them as well. So we got Landon here saying, so my new strategy is chalky Skeens and then a contrarian sock stack. Good idea. I like it, Landon. If you're on DK, I think that makes some sense. Taking a look at ownership, though, yeah, Boston, they're pretty popular. I would just take a look over at the batters tab and see which bats are the most popular. Maybe look for a way to get a little bit different. I think a lot of that ownership is going to Christian Campbell, and it's not actually, at least not yet. But he's near minimum price on DK. 3,100 isn't near min, but on FanDuel he is min. Hitting six, talented young kid, really lowers the cost of the stack overall. So yeah, I'm trying to think. How would you want to get different here? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't think you want to skip Devers. I don't think you want to skip Duran. I mean, by not playing Campbell, that's a way to get a little different. Not saying I recommend it necessarily, or getting in one of these guys like Rafaela, who actually had a massive year hitting at the bottom of that order. Usually, we don't love playing guys in the 7, 8, 9 hole, but again, as a way to get different with a popular stack, that's not a bad way to go. But good question. Trey asking, do we think Sean Burke is a good play at pitcher? So on another slate, I'd say yes. And again, like any other sport, context matters when we're talking about these things. If Burke was on a slate with a bunch of other kind of mediocre arms, I'd absolutely love him here. I think he is too cheap for his upside. He's a talented young kid. It's just all these teams are putting out their best arms today. So can he get there? Yes. We've seen him put up solid numbers. He's pretty much fully stretched out. I did go into every single arm last night and try to get how many pitches these guys have been stretched out to. I did not have Burke as an outlier, so I do think he's fine. But yeah, I think he's risky. And again, you can afford almost anything you want in baseball until we start to see the Dodgers on some of these slates and their ridiculously expensive lineup. But I will say, with guys like Campbell on Boston, Smith on Houston, there's a lot of really cheap rookies today that if you have your 5-man stacks on DK, you could use these cheap one-offs and pretty much fit whatever pitchers you want. And yeah, this is a long-winded answer. Burke's a good play, but on a slate like this full of aces, I don't know that he's a great play. And if we take a look over at the model, just pulling up, I'll do FanDuel main. He's towards the bottom. And again, on another slate pushing 10 OF index, I actually think he's half decent. I mean, he's over a K per inning pitch, which is a qualifier for me. Angels lineup's pretty good. A little bit of a fall off though once you get to the middle of that order. He's fine. It's just again, this slate is so loaded with quality arms. Kikuchi, absolute chalk against the White Sox. Really like him for value. He's only 600 more than Burke is. I mean, going through here, Hunter Green, maybe the riskiest arm on the entire slate, but his ceiling might be the highest. Definitely underpriced on DK. But yeah, I mean, you could make a case for most of these pitchers. Again, teams are trying to put out what they have as the best arms in their rotations. I like him a lot. But again, given the context of the slate, it's not a play we're recommending. I think there's just so many other ways to go. And I don't know that the value is really helping you in a big way. Because again, we have these underpriced rookies in a lot of these lineups. Hope that answers that question. I'll keep taking questions and then we'll go a little bit game by game. I'll talk to you guys, some of my favorite players. Josh, how many players are we stacking on a team? On DK, I always want a 5-man stack. If you can make a 5-3 work, that's great. If you can make a 5-2-1 work, that's fine. But I've had most of my success paying up a pitcher, eating chalk for the arms that I think are safest, finding a contrarian enough 5-man stack, and then whatever I can do with the remaining salary as that third variable or even fourth variable on DK is not as important to me. I know some people would disagree with that, but let me show you an example here. So today we like the Rangers. They're very low owned. There's obviously some risk against Garrett Crochet. But at the same time, I mean, it's one great way to get different. So if we're playing the Rangers, we can eat chalk at pitcher. So let's say we get the best bats in here. We get Semien, Seager, Langford, Garcia, Berger. I really like Jung. I mean, I would almost, I don't know. Who do I want to leave out? Like Seager's so good. He's probably going to homer. But I don't know. If we want to go righty lefty against Crochet, I really want Jung in here just because I think he has home run upside. He's someone I'd bet for a home run. But that's personal bias. But you're already different. You're getting even more different by not playing Seager. So you can eat the chalk at pitcher. We can get Skeens in here. And I think we like Sale a little bit more than Wheeler. Wheeler's been kind of volatile. Padres lineup isn't as dangerous as it has been in the years past. So this is the priority. Get the best arms possible with your 5-man stack. And then from there, if you can find a nice little 3-man that fits, obviously that's ideal. Get a little bit of extra correlation. But for me, since I'm already kind of meeting what I want in a lineup, I'm fine to maybe look to a team like, I don't know, is Campbell short or third base on? Um, I mean, this is a good opportunity to use the model. So we got shortstop, catcher, and outfield left, right? 3,100 per player. Go ahead, take a look at the batters here. Pull that DK slider down to 3,100. And then we could go a little over. We could go under as well. So I'll go 35. Top of index plays here. We got Higashioka for Texas, who isn't even in our stack, which is funny. So you try to see if any teams are popping up more than once. Like Cleveland, I'm a huge Cole Reagans fan, but if you could get Santana with Lane Thomas, that would be pretty appealing. Catcher, shortstop, outfields. Let's see. Catcher, shortstop, outfields. And you could sort by position as well. Hold multiple positions. And again, this is the way I like to kind of do my secondary stacks. I don't know, not a lot of teams popping up more than once. Cleveland, Boston. I mean, we like KC, right, against Lively now. So we could go Melendez, Renfro. Here we go. I know Renfro's cheap. I mean, I'd love to get to Bobby Witt and Sal Perez. That's just not going to happen. Again, this is like the fourth part of our lineup, so we're prioritizing things elsewhere. Like if I were to pay down from one of the more expensive outfielders, we can maybe get more expensive Royals, but I'm not really prioritizing the Royals. So if we can get Melendez, eh, he's only outfield now. Okay. All right, so I guess we do go Perez, whatever. Okay, so then we're left with min salary at shortstop. Is there anyone there? Yeah, last piece in. Throw in this Amaya kid. You get a little bit of leverage off of Kikuchi chalk. But that's, again, I'm prioritizing getting safe pitching, a quality stack with upside that maybe isn't as popular. And if you're going with a more popular stack, just look for safer pitching that isn't as popular. You don't want your whole lineup to be chalk, but like NBA or any other sport, you don't want to be so different that it's almost impossible to keep up with the lineups that are playing chalk. But yeah, this is a pretty solid build in my opinion. I'd probably try to go maybe Higashio catcher, kind of mix things up, but we'll do a few of these over the next hour. I got FanDuel pulled open too. But yeah, and then on FanDuel, same thing. We're going 4-mans as much as possible, and then a 3-man. So say we like the Royals over here as well. I know we can pull up the full batting order, but I just know off the top of my head, I want Bobby Witt. I really like Pascatino. He's been banged up, but it's nice to see he's in there today. Who else? Massey. So like I'm pretty much plucking my favorite. Like I could go to the model and look at who the top Royals are, but I'm guessing it's something like this. But I mean India. Love that they acquired him. He's gonna have a really good year, I think. Here. Okay, so we already got a relatively contrarian stack. They're not super low owned. So say we go a little bit different at pitcher, and then we can maybe play something chalkier for the secondary stack. Um, but yeah, you guys kind of get where I'm at. Like you don't want to go so off the beaten path that you need everything to go right for teams and players that aren't always going to get there. There is a lot of variance and volatility to MLB, but it's also one of the more projectable sports because we have such quality data. Um, but yeah, I mean, like if we are playing Kikuchi, who's too cheap, love his upside. Like we're already kind of chalky, so this would be a spot I would try to look to go to, like a team like Texas or something else lower owned. Um, and again, I don't know that Texas has a third base play. I'm just jumping at here, but yeah, again, I don't need to fill out all these lineups. We can talk through another one in a second. Um, so Landon saying sorry, should have specified White Sox stack since they're going up against another chalky pitcher. So yeah, what Landon's bringing up here is really interesting. So you're able to find the most leverage when you're stacking against a good pitcher or a pitcher that's popular. So today we're looking at what's chalk. I mean, on DK, it's Skeens, it's Kikuchi, it's Crochet, it's Wheeler, Sale, Green. We wrote up Skeens, Kikuchi, and Sale in the plug. We actually see them as really solid plays. But at the same time, if you're stacking against any of them and these pitchers are struggling, you're getting double the leverage. That's how you're really going to climb a leaderboard. On FanDuel, same thing. It's Skeens and Kikuchi. But if for whatever reason you really like the White Sox, like Landon's bringing up here, or you really like the Marlins, that is the quickest way in these really large field tournaments, like the main one on DK with 40,000 entries, to find your way up a leaderboard. Today, there's so many options that I don't know that I want to be playing White Sox or Marlins necessarily, but I do think the model loving Texas and Crochet being popular in DK makes Texas especially appealing over there. But for the sake of the video, and for the sake of Landon's question here, let's go ahead and see which White Sox bats are popping. I'm guessing Louis Robert will be one of them. I had him circle as a home run play today. Um, Funny, Chris actually posted this in our Slack. There was a question. One of the reporters asked him if he was surprised he's still on the White Sox because they're obviously rebuilding. He's one of the better hitters in the AL. And he said, yes, I am surprised. But yeah, funnily enough, the outfielders are scoring the best here. So if you wanted to go against Kikuchi, you're going to want Robert. You're going to want Vargas. Taylor batting ninth, I don't feel great about. But Vaughn, Sosa, I mean, those are the guys. And again, no one's playing this team, so you don't have to go out of your way to get different. Just play the best bats from the White Sox. Try to stick to the top of the order where you can. But yeah, I would definitely prioritize Robert, Vaughn. I do like Sosa. Vargas is fine. But yeah, again, I'm not getting to the White Sox today, Landon. I do get it though, and it is a good talking point because that's where you're going to get most of the leverage. Chris saying he hopes Zach Wheeler starts red hot. Yeah, he's been shaky in the spring. I'm not going to lie. I was looking at a few of his starts. The thing is, we don't want to overweigh spring training. A lot of these guys are trying to figure out their pitch mix. They're just throwing secondary pitches, trying to see what works. So again, don't have to go too deep into that. Josh saying very helpful. Appreciate that. Lock Skeens play KC bats, print money. I mean, Chops, some of my dummy builds, that's the first thing I was doing. So I'm totally there with you. Anthony, good question here asking which stack is better, Mets or Phillies? So this is not an exact I don't know, black or white question, if you know what I mean. Like there is some gray area. So I think the Phillies, just off the top of my head, are the better stack. I think their upside's tremendous. But it kind of depends what you're doing with the rest of your lineup, right? They're one of the most popular stacks on the slate. So while I'll sit here and say the Phillies are the better stack, if you're playing chalk at pitcher in a tournament, you're probably better off going to the Mets, even though they're risky. So what I'll say is it's the Phillies, but maybe don't go Skeens. Maybe don't go Kikuchi. Try to get a little bit different at pitching. Or if we go over here to the model, check out what the Phillies look like. Um, yeah, let's see these ownerships. I mean, on DK, Turner, Harper, Romuto, Schwarber, Baum. Castellanos is underowned, in my opinion. So if you're going Phillies, get to Casty. He tends to mash lefties. I really like him as a way to get different on both sides if you're playing Phillies. So maybe he's your key there. Over on FanDuel, yeah, if you're playing Phillies and you need to go chalky a pitcher, maybe you just fade one of Turner or Baum. They're two of the best on the team, so I don't feel good about saying that. But again, just try to get different within the stack. This is a team that's popular, so that is something you maybe want to ask yourself. But I think, again, the easier way is to still play the Phillies' best bats, but mix it up at pitcher. Hope that one helps, guys. But Yeah, let's take a couple more questions, and then I'll talk to you guys through some of my favorite players. Yeah, Pasquatch is my favorite. He's on one of my season-long teams. I was worried he wasn't going to be good to go, but I'm with you. Yeah, like Philly, but playing a little Gore too. In the same way, you can get leverage stacking against a popular pitcher. You can get leverage playing a pitcher against a popular stack. It's just tough to do on a slate this size because look, Gore only 5% owned. If he dominates today, those Philly lineups are dead. Obviously, it's going to help you climb up a leaderboard, but at the same time, he also has to outperform the pitchers in his price range to really scoop that extra leverage. So he's so cheap, I don't hate it. But at the same time, it's like I don't know. Is he really going to outperform the Kikuchis, the Greens, the Webbs, the Grays? So even if the Phillies aren't great, you also need Gore to have a really good game on a slate like this. So you could just fade the Phillies to get different, or you could just play Gore to get different. But again, you don't want to go too crazy. Yeah, White Sox, good leverage stack. Personally, I am playing a decent amount of Kikuchi. Any shortstop on DK we like under 5K. And again, this is very easy to check, guys. So again, check the links in the description below. Oh, sorry, I gotta clear my throat. I'm used to doing the basketball streams where there's two of us and we're talking back and forth. Can catch my breath, but yeah, nonstop talking. I need to just get some water, like Brian, or just cough it out once in a while. But yeah, sub 5K. Again, just switch it over to shortstop. Pull the slider down. And sometimes I like to go a little bit over because if there is something there I really like, I can find other ways to get to them. But yeah, Abrams against Wheeler, the top bat here, guy with power and speed. If you're leaning into that green volatility, Willie Adames in his debut with the Giants definitely has home run upside. Renifo against the White Sox, another decent one. But yeah, I added that 200. You see someone like Seager popping, but at the same time, still lower OF index than the guys like Abrams, Adamas, etc. So don't need to rebuild or anything like that, probably just to fit that in. Okay, so let's talk through some more strategy here. I'm going to talk through the pitchers on today's slate, and just I usually like to set a cutoff point for OF index. Even if I'm building a bunch of lineups on a slate like today where it's all aces, this is not an exact science. Reagan's is maybe one of my favorite arms in the league, but the Guardians don't K all that much. So I don't know that he has a ton of upside here. Webb, I like, but again, not a good matchup. He's in a major park downgrade, usually pitches in San Fran, going to Cincinnati. So I'm not surprised he's not showing too well here. Not the highest K rate. Um, so yeah, it's like I love Skeens. I think Kikuchi's solid. I'm a little bit afraid about Wheeler, just given his kind of shaky spring. But like I said, we don't want to overthink that. Vegas loves him. He has one of the highest K props on the slate. Nationals after the first few spots in that order are spotty. I do like Sale. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm afraid to play Rodon here. I'm not going to lie. Um, and Sonny Gray's been dealing with the flu. So this one to me is the one spot in the model I don't think I necessarily agree with. It's a good matchup against Minnesota, but he does not appear to be in good form. Checking his velocity too, it's way down. So for me, I'm probably skipping Sonny Gray. My pitcher pool, for the most part, I love Skeens Kikuchi as chalk. I think Wheeler's overowned. Definitely as much upside as any though. Sale, really solid. And then, yeah, it gets a little bit dicey. I think King in a bad matchup has a ton of upside for his price. He's a tournament play I really like. I could say the same about Hunter Green. I've said it already 6 times, though. He could get crushed, give up 6 home runs in 2 innings, or he could go out there and have 10 Ks in six. So that's the type of play we like in tournaments. There's just so much to choose from today. I'd rather get different with bats. So I'm eating a lot of the Skeens chalk. I really am pretty comfortable playing Kikuchi, who's looked great all spring. This White Sox lineup's kind of terrible. And you can create yourself a hedge stack. So say you're playing 20 lineups and you have Kikuchi in 10 of them. Like you're over the field. You really like him. You're being aggressive. But at the same time, if he stinks, you can kind of hedge and create one or two White Sox stacks where you're playing safe pitchers like Skeens and Sale or Wheeler. And if he struggles, you're in a position where those couple of lineups you have left over can help carry you up a leaderboard and maybe make your night in the green or even. So depending on what type of contest you're playing, I am someone who does like to hedge my heavier exposures, especially at pitcher. It doesn't mean today, even though Skeens is my highest known arm, I'm going out to build Marlin stacks. But it's just speaking through this type of strategy, that is something you maybe would want to do. I just think on a large slate like this, even if Skeens isn't hitting his ceiling, I don't know that the Marlins are really outperforming some of the other cheap stacks. But yeah, definitely a way to kind of think about things if you're building multiple lineups. You could put yourself in a position to chase first every night where you're almost not going to play any chalk arms a lot of the time or chalk bats. And you're just going to have to be comfortable losing more often than not. Or you could kind of set yourself up to cash at least somewhat every night, kind of tread water and go about things that way. Kind of depends how deep your pockets are, depends how deep or how far you want to go in terms of risk tolerance. But again, that depends on the player. Um, all right, let's see what else we got going here. So yeah, no real shocks in today's lineups. I did want to call out a few value one-offs for you guys um, on both sides. But again, just mostly aces today. And it is cold. This was written in the plug. This time of year definitely favors the pitchers. Balls carry more when it's warm. So some of these games that are indoors, that's actually a decent place to look for bats. On FanDuel, this Orioles Blue Jays game, expecting a lot of runs there. I bet that total. Red Sox Rangers. I know Crochet looks good on paper. Another game though, we're expecting a lot of runs. So you got to look for these spots. Everything's relative to the slate that we're given. So night to night, that's going to change. And as much as we hate NBA dealing with late news and scratches and crap like that, much less of that in MLB. But we do have to deal with weather, which is an absolute nightmare. Luckily today, there's really nothing too significant. A little bit of rain in this Twins Cardinals game, not enough to really worry about though. So yeah, weather is a thing today. Luckily, it's not. But yeah, let's see. Checking the model, gonna do a quick refresh. But yeah, there's some rookies in these lineups that are underpriced. Both sites, for promotional reasons, have had this slate out for a few weeks. So some of these guys, I think, that got the call up maybe weren't expected to be there. I mean, Christian Campbell won for Boston. I mean, if you just go and kind of look at rookie of the year odds, he's definitely one of the top guys there. Hitting sixth in this really solid order and a good matchup against Yovaldi. He's one of the pieces I'm using as a one-off a lot to fit more expensive bats and arms. I like him a lot. Houston has Smith, Cam Smith, yeah, and he actually rates pretty well in OF Index already. Really talented young kid, still developing as a prospect. Don't love that he's hitting seventh in the order, but he's dirt cheap and he's really talented and he can do it all. So these are the types of plays I like to use as one offs. Just guys with upside in good lineups that maybe are underpriced for whatever reason. Looking across the league, I mean, on FanDuel, the Yankees do have Ben Rice, kind of hitting towards the bottom of the order, though. Again, you could only play. Oops, brought up some analytics there by mistake. Whatever. But yeah, I mean, Ben Rice is someone you can maybe consider. Looking through other cheap guys that I'm interested in playing. I mean, Dylan Cruz, really talented. They actually priced him up for the Nationals. Um, Texas's lineup's crazy this year. I think Jake Berger is someone going a little bit overlooked, but he's priced up. So yeah, maybe not as many rookies as I was kind of touting and getting you guys excited about, but I think Campbell and Smith are really two that I want to key in on. I just think they're too cheap for their talent. They're in good lineups, in decent matchups, and even if you aren't stacking those teams, it's a good way to kind of pay up at other positions. Um, all right. So yeah, I kind of talked through the pitchers I like the most. Obviously, um, in the plug, we had Skeens, Kikuchi, Sale. I mean, I'm pretty much on par with that. As far as stacks go, the Royals ownership is climbing, unfortunately. I was hoping they wouldn't get this popular, but they're going to. Um, Again, everyone's kind of still in NBA mode making these pivots, but he got scratched like several hours before the slate. So KC looks outstanding in the model now. But they are going to come in as one of the more popular stacks on the entire board. Let's see here. Gotta make sure we get the slate pulled up. Yeah, the Mets are very low owned. They have upside. Valdez, obviously, a talented arm, but not quite in midseason form yet. Not that any of these guys are. Don't mind getting to him a little bit. Like I said, Wheeler, I think he has as much upside as any arm on the slate. But if you do want to lean into spring training, he's someone who's been struggling a little bit. As is Sonny Gray. Twins lineup is interesting. They got Buxton in there. Ty France. Yeah, pretty much par for the course for them. I don't love the game environment, a little bit rainy, kind of cold, but yeah, if you want to kind of chase something, I don't mind going to the Twins, but the model hates them. So I'm trying to kind of talk myself out of it right now, and they are getting some ownership. But yeah, kind of flatter ownerships than maybe we'll see most of the season, which is a good thing. The Angels being the most popular stack on the slate is kind of insane to me. So to answer a question from the beginning of the show, I actually think Burke now as a leverage arm isn't crazy. Again, there's just enough value elsewhere that I don't think it's necessary. Philly is good chalk in my opinion. Cincy maybe a bit overowned. But yeah, it's like really healthy ownerships to a lot of these teams. Um, let's see here. Again, Texas. I mean, if there was ever a leverage play or ever a play to kind of climb a leaderboard against the field, it is the Rangers today. Top OF index rating, nowhere near as owned as a lot of these other teams. Like they're not even top 10 in ownership on FanDuel. I think they're just around 10th or 11th on DK. So that's kind of your key to get different. But again, Garrett Crochet is so damn talented. It's like you're not going to feel great about it, but the model does do a good job of kind of identifying these spots. Um, and yeah, Crochet's stretched out, but I could see a world where they kind of work him into going deeper because it is a contract year for him, I think. And I don't know that he wants to be throwing 120 pitches a game. So, um, yeah, no reason not to like Crochet. Yeah, guys, other strategy questions, please do get them in. The Prince, who's pitching for Cleveland? It's Ben Lively. Um, Tanner Bibby was scratched with food poisoning. Just got a huge contract. Some saying he's overpaid, but yeah, just a little bit sick this morning. So no real issues there for Cleveland. He should be fine. Question here from Landon: is it better to stack the top half of the batting order, or does it matter as long as there's sequential correlation between the batters? Good question. It is better to stack the top because think of it this way: like if you're a leadoff hitter, you might get 5 at bats a game. If you're hitting eighth or ninth, you might get 4. Like your spot in the orders is coming up more often, and you want to get in as many at bats for your team as possible. As we kind of go into the season, we'll start to identify some of these teams that do have guys that get pinch hit for frequently. Um, I don't know that today that's something I wanted to dig too deeply into because I don't know. We don't have a huge sample on it, but just trying to think of an example. Like Austin Slater for the White Sox, if they're hitting well and they chase Kikuchi, and the Angels go to a righty in the pen, he's someone historically who gets pinch hit for against righties. I don't think he's in the lineup every day against right-handed pitching, so just something else to keep in mind. But yeah, you want to maximize your at bats, and the best way to do that is to play the top of the batting order. The thing is, if it's all chalk, maybe pull one of those guys and do the wraparound, get like a 9-1-2-3-4, something like that. Usually that's a really good way to get different. But not all 9 hitters are created equal, right? Like the Braves have Jared Kelenic, really talented kid, very cheap, good play today, in my opinion. But you look around the league, I mean, Trevino for the Reds, he's going to homer because I said that, but really not someone you want to be playing. Like Jacob Young for the Nationals, just a really kind of not so great hitter compared to a lot of the guys in the league. But yeah, again, it depends on the lineup, depends on ownership. But to answer the question, top of the order is ideal as often as you can get there. Let's see. Lineups coming in. I mean, no real surprises. A lot of this stuff has been kind of out there for a few days. Um, but yeah, again, the model will update in real time. Unlike NBA, it's not going to be as dramatic, but as things like weather changes, lineups change, small shifts in the betting market, you will see small adjustments. So it is good to continue to refresh. Let's see what else we got going on. There is a night slate tonight, but obviously going to focus on this main. We got plenty to choose from. Um, let's see. Yeah, interesting spot here. Another arm I did want to kind of talk about a little bit is Sandy Alcantara. Model does not like him at all. So maybe we get to a little bit of pit, but I will say Sandy's had a really good spring. He's fully stretched out. He's coming off, I think, Tommy John. So no one ever wants to play a guy in that situation. But a lot of his stats A lot of the stuff that's going into the data for him came while he was pitching very much injured. It seems like he's the ace he was before that injury again. So just something to keep in mind. Again, the model's always the way to go. But when you can kind of find these nuances, if they kind of go against the field, it might not be a bad idea to try to capitalize. So for me, Sandy's someone I like more than the model. Gray's someone I like way less, for example. Not too many outliers today other than that. Again, my favorite kind of cheap bats, Campbell for Boston, Smith for, um, what's it called? The Astros. So rookies that are too cheap, kind of priced like they're minor leaguers still, but they're going to be everyday players. So we'll see those prices climb very quickly. Um, but yeah, again, I think the Royals are my favorite stack now. Unfortunately, they're going to be super popular. Phillies look good. They're super popular as well. If we're going contrarian, definitely like Texas. I'll take a few shots on my Yankees on FanDuel. They are getting some love though. Peralta, a good arm, but historically better at home. Known to be volatile, does give up power when he's not at his best. Um, there was no real like short leashes as far as the slate is concerned. I think most of these guys are fully stretched out. They're probably not going to get over 100 pitches, but most can push 100 today. Um, Skeens was actually one. I think he only threw 70 or 80 last time, but he's so damn good. Like even if he goes 5-6 innings, he can get you 10 Ks. So I don't want to talk anyone off playing him. Um, yeah, guys, any other questions, feel free to get them in. Again, the plug comes out every day, a few hours before lock. We're going to kind of summarize the model, show you the best stacks, the best pitchers, and then kind of the best one off bats that are outside of the stacks and the best value plays that could exist within it. Again, Smitty, myself, and Chris filling this out every day. But yeah, unlike NBA, we can write these things and it doesn't change 100 times. So it's actually worth it. We also have the biggest favorites. Sometimes that's a good way to identify arms. Obviously, the win bonus helps, but usually, if a team's favored, it's because the pitcher is expected to pitch well and deep into that game. Highest implied totals here, no real surprises. Um, Again, I do think maybe Houston's getting little more love than they should. Um, Holmes has been solid. He's another guy whose data kind of extends back to his time with the Yankees, where he was shaky out of that bullpen. But that will catch up pretty quickly. Love to see a healthy Mike Trout. Hoping he has a good one today. Um, but yeah, let's see what other questions we got coming in. Not much else, guys. So if you guys don't have anything else, I think we're going to wrap up in a minute or two. Um, Again, I don't think there's anything too crazy about this slate. Just keep in mind, it's aces, right? In quotes. These teams are putting out the arms they think are their best. Um, so stacking's important. If one of them struggles, you're going to want to be on that team. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of ways to go at pitcher. A lot of upside for a lot of these arms. I would rather get different with bats, though, just knowing Skeens is taking on the Marlins. And yeah, I think Kikuchi's good chalk. Just the White Sox lineup. I mean, ugh, after Robert, it's pretty terrible. I'm a fan of Lennon Sosa, but this is just not a good squad. Um, Other things to keep in mind, guys. I mean, stolen bases are something that does get overlooked a lot of the time. They do score pretty well in fantasy. Um, let's see if I could pull this up. But yeah, there's this site I use, Baseball Savant. You can kind of track arms that are good against steals, those that aren't. But at the same time, I mean, this stuff is baked into these hitter scores in the model in OF Index. So don't need to be too concerned about that. Um, yeah, Noel for the Guardians. Another sneaky home run call. I'll throw that one out there. Big Christmas. Again, I'm a huge Cole Reagans fan, but 3K flat on DK for him's too cheap. Um, but yeah, expecting a good day of ball. I'm looking forward to it. Got my Yankees coming on ESPN in a few minutes. I'm actually on the NBA show today, so hopefully my voice recovers a little bit. But yeah, guys, we grind here. That's what we do. But all the more reason, again, to sign up. Check the links in the description. We don't know yet how many videos we're going to be doing, but we will be in Discord helping you out. Again, the plug is daily for all the big slates. All I think it's any slate over 3 or 4 games. So we'll frequently be getting that article out to you. And if there's days with split slates, we're in there giving you the info you need as well. Always answering questions. You get access to the model here, which for MLB gives you the batters, the pitchers, and the stacks. Also has Showdown if you're looking for it. And we do have the lineup builder if you are someone who does MME. But yeah, really affordable compared to a lot of the other providers out there. Just really happy to be here once again. I think we're going to crush this year. And again, 100K winners we've had. Just trying to pull up his name again. Jalen Westman shouts out last year, pulling down 100K, and he did not max out that contest. I think he only had a handful of lineups in there, and yeah, 100K, that's life changing money for pretty much anyone. Obviously, love to see that. I'm someone who does play a lot of single entry. As the season goes, I'll do more 20 max stuff. Going to keep an eye on how the contest sizing goes. But yeah, so many different ways to play MLB. And if you are someone with a high risk tolerance, this is a sport for you because the variance does get crazy. Like if you think on a day that the chalky arms are bad, just stack against them. Most of the days it's not going to work, but on the days it does, you will really climb up the leaderboard, especially on a smaller slate where it's not all aces. But today's tricky for that reason. Um, and again, I just can't thank you enough for tuning in. Middle of the afternoon show. Just fired up though to get MLB on the ground and running. Here we go. Couple questions here. Seager or Lindor? I think Lindor is going to look better in the model, but let's double check. Bap, I see your question. I'll get to it in a second, but I'm not crazy about Gray. I will say that. Seager or Lindor? Sorting by position. Lindor's way ahead of him. Again, we like Texas, but it's lefty lefty. Crochet is really tough to hit as a lefty. Obviously, Seager is one of the few left-handed bats. It's kind of I don't know. It doesn't always matter for him, but we definitely prefer him against righties. So Lindor is a switch hitter. He's where I'm going. So I hope that helps you out, Trey. And the BAP here, KC stack, Tex mini stack with Gray at pitcher on FanDuel. So I like the first 2 parts of that. Love the KC stack, love the Tex mini stack. But if we're looking at pitchers, I mean, Gray looks okay. 10-2 though, like I don't want to pay that for him. I mean, I'd rather either find 500 for sale or go to Kikuchi as chalk. I think you're getting different enough already by just playing those Texas Rangers. I think Green himself has more upside than Sonny does today. Again, Sonny's velocity's down and he's dealing with the flu. That's enough to scare me away. But yeah, so I like the stacks, but maybe look at a different pitcher. Yeah, Anson Chirrillo. That's one of the reasons I'm afraid to get to Rendon or Rodon. Rendon. Um, yeah, Jackson Chirrillo, really talented young player. Absolutely love him. You can use him as a one-off or as part of a stack. This kid is 5 tool athlete, power, speed. He does it all, and he hits at the top of the order. So you're maximizing those at bats. Checks a ton of boxes for me. Curious where he's at in the model, but regardless, I do love that call. Yeah, not so great. Um, I like him though. I think he's a solid player. It's a bad strategy to play Wheeler with Phil's batters. Justin, no, that doesn't matter. I mean, there's really no correlation between the two. If anything, if the hitters do well, you're probably more likely to get that little win bonus. But yeah, usually if a pitcher's doing well, it doesn't mean the hitters aren't. Like DeGrom was cursed with the Mets for a while. Like he'd have 8 shutout innings and they'd score no runs, but that was more because those Mets lineups stunk than anything. Like Phillies look great today. Wheeler looks great today. Don't worry about that. There's no real correlation between the two. Crisango, Jordan, the Stros. Yeah, new look Stros this year. Very interested to see how they do. Obviously, no more Bregman, no more Tucker. I do like the Christian Walker edition, though. Big upgrade over our boy John Singleton. Cam Smith, one of my favorites for Rookie of the Year. It'll be interesting to see if Paredes can be an everyday guy, though. Mashes left-handed pitching. Whenever you're playing the Astros against lefty, Paredes is a priority. But against righties, we got to kind of wait and see. Um, Great. Awesome, guys. I think that's about it. Again, get behind that paywall. It's not too cheap to climb over. Get access to the plug every day. Get access to the model. We've been talking through the video. Always happy to take one-on-one questions in the Discord if you guys have them about strategy, about a specific slate, anything else. Again, love it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, we got a bot in here plugging MLB TV. But hyped, guys. Weather's going to get nice. Balls are going to be flying. Good luck, everyone. Take care. Let's crush it. See you at the top of the leaderboards.